Hello, I'm Audree Grubesic. I am the founder and owner of Offsite Dirt. We are a community of offsite solutions, high performance build, manufacturing, and really we have elaborated even further on all construction types, traditional and offsite. Today we are with Kitspace. We're with Graham Blake, who is the founder and managing partner of Kitspace. This is a very unique platform, and it's interesting his way of looking at projects, productivity, standardization. Welcome, Graham. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.
I'm so happy you're here. We had such a beautiful conversation about a week ago, and I was just deeply enthralled in what you guys are doing. Would you mind giving our audience a little bit more about your background and a little bit more understanding of what Kitspace is?
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're a boutique advisory consulting firm based here in Vancouver, BC, and we found our niche right now in tackling growth and other scale up problems around built space. Personally, I'm coming from a design background, industrial design, furniture design, and spent the last 20 years in multifamily development, mixed use development. Really working around industrialization and sort of different supply chain strategies in that space. It's constantly changing, and to this day, we're thankfully being brought into a much broader and more unique mix of projects, and so it spans everything from enterprise scale engagements to help with productization through to some more niche innovation strategies and business startups that we're helping. So we're that's what we do, and it's fascinating work to me, and really interested to see what you guys make of it.
I agree. And so you guys are located in Vancouver, correct? British Columbia, Vancouver?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's so wonderful. I feel like Canadian companies really have this overview or this enterprising innovation when they build. And so when we're looking at things like that and looking at Kitspace in general, how are you taking the interior design for manufacturing? How are you creating that approach and unlocking these amazing value downstreams?
Yeah, I think, first is just to kind of give the context. So we're still dealing with conventional construction typically. So, our market here in Vancouver, obviously highly dense, high rise, concrete frame, and obviously we have mass timber and other built forms coming in. So from my perspective, in terms of when we think about design for manufacture and industrialization, we're really looking to see how we can bring that production mindset into those conventional streams. It's not just about trying to replace it with new methodologies. So for me, yeah, it really means around trying to create that high resolution, high fidelity design conversations and insert them when they matter, which is again not necessarily a common practice within these groups. And so for the groups, with the clients that we work with, it's very much an education around how that can help and what it might mean for them as a team and how they interact with their other consultants. Like, what is it we're doing, and how do we kind of find our flying formation with architecture, interior architecture, and an ID, of course.
So it's interesting we're talking about industrialized construction, and like you said, you take a lot of traditional build solutions and conversations. Can you walk us through maybe a project or give us an idea of how this process works? Because I feel like it's very much different than we look at just building a pre-construction team or answering to a solution. I feel like you really kind of open it up and look at the bigger picture, and then how do you bring in these partners and these conversations to utilize them and create a solution?
Sure. I think the first thing to think about there is around that detailed design work. It's for how it's widely accepted that obviously early engagement with subject matter experts, early engagement with the supply chain has these benefits, right? We resolve more early, we understand the finer coordination, and we can confirm or deny things in a VCon simulation type of environment. The challenge that we perceive or that we've come across is that often there's a couple of things that work against that. One is the design ideation of the project itself isn't sufficiently mature to the point where you can actually have those conversations. And also there's some resistance around remaining, keeping enough cost tension in the structure, and in terms of procurement and bias towards certain vendors. So there's, I think, talking to a lot of groups, particularly on the general contracting side, that's where they feel like they see a benefit, but they also feel some resistance because they feel like they're being guided towards to one, into one solution or other. So I think for us, the remedy that is two parts. One is being supply chain and product agnostic. We really don't care what it is that we're considering or developing as in the context of the project. And the other is to, again, as a independent or third-party consultant, to bring that and make the offering of that design assist work available and accessible to the team when it matters. So again, it's I think we're focused on interiors because we see that in terms of other systems, mechanical, electrical, structural, these things are pretty well resolved, and also they change, but they don't. The specifics of it are still pretty well defined, and so anything you do in that kind of VCon scenario is helpful. But if a lot of other decisions haven't yet been made, you struggle to find someone at the table who can actually pick something and then iterate on it in that same conversation.
So when we're talking about interior, the interior design for manufacturers, this is a really practical way to start shifting the traditional real estate organization mindset towards productization and outcome-oriented design. What does that mean? How are we looking at that with Kitspace?
I think first it's just opening the opportunity to look at the rest of the building as a series of assemblies, and so we can redefine those scope barriers. Again, obviously, we could be looking at a building which has some kind of volumetric component like pods or some other prefabricated structures or utility cupboards or whatever. So those are kind of easy packages. We can conceive of those. We can fully detail them, define them, and then we can license that out to or bid it out to vendors. The other part of it is just looking at the design without the assumptions or constraints of maybe conventional trade packages, and understand that this isn't just a sum of parts around mechanical plus flooring plus drywall, whatever those buckets are usually, and just coming with an open mind to that. So first it's looking again as we integrate systems, and if it's interior partitioning or if it's again pods or it's millwork or it's fixturing or whatever those things, again just reimagining how that interacts. And if we know what's needed and we can quantify it, again it's practically, one is the design, one is the built thing, and the other part is the design and operation of the supply chain. Like, how does that change? What are the opportunities there? How does that reflect maybe the client's bigger organizational structures? So yeah, practically it's about doing the getting into the weeds and really defining a product, but then zooming back out to say, okay, well, if this is the thing that we need, how else could we get it? How else could it be delivered? Who else could execute this work, et cetera, et cetera.
So when you're doing that and you are putting together these, like you have your consulting agreement, you have your client, you're talking about the interiors, let's just say you're setting up a kitchen process, or you're doing pods or whatever the product may be. What is the benefit of using your services? What does the client get out by working with Graham and Kitspace when they are looking at their interiors, or they're putting together this type of mindset approach to changing to productization? What are you finding? What are your clients finding?
Yeah, I think so. I think on a project level, I say we're obviously enabling that greater earlier stage design resolution coordination. So I think there's a net benefit in terms of errors and omissions and predictability. And if we are getting to that like fully defined, quantified set of componentry, we're doing it at a point when the value to that can still be accessed. We're not doing it retrospectively as some kind of clawback from a commitment that's already made. So one, I think there's just baseline project efficiencies that one can access. I think the second part of that is the supply chain piece. If you have a fully defined requirement or set of requirements, and you have known costs, you're able to engage in a different way with supply chains and look at maybe particularly other opportunities for production, whether that be from a conventional trade route, or whether it's going to be from an established industrialized vendor, or maybe it's other adjacent markets. For us, again, for a very long time, we found an opportunity to look at white label OEMs that have been servicing big box retailers for years. That they produce product for under license for IKEA and Home Depot and Amazon and many others. Again, as a client or a project owner, if you've got that bill of materials, if you understand what you need, you can leverage these organizations in a different way. And you can enter into, maybe group buying agreements, or you can even just on an individual project basis look at outputting there. And, there's significant cost savings or efficiencies that can be had from that. I'd say like the last piece I would highlight is really in this mode of product, not project, we're able to access, an iterative, continually improving process. And so, again, a lot of our conversations with our client channels are about taking shift that mindset, like going above the notion of a project. Projects for us, they set the requirements, they inform us about what the needs are, they tell us performance-wise what needs to happen, but somehow they're informing a greater product, and that consistent product or output of an enterprise scale developer can be improved and informed over time. So I would say that consistency of process and having, again, a frameworks there that allow for you to learn and deploy to projects, but ultimately continue to improve as an organization. That's a very big gain from this kind of process.
Yeah, and I love that, I've got to speak with another partner on your team. Everything seems to be very data-driven. You seem to have these great resources and these relationships that you have created in order to have these success stories. And so when I look at that and I look at land development in the industry, and we're all starting to make this big transition to more resilience and sustainability, are you seeing this being a wider approach with your organization when you walk into these conversations? Obviously, you're getting the requirements from your client. Are you feeling like you're now leading them into these more sustainable approach to this type of design process?
Yeah, I think we challenged the design process a lot more than we used to through this. I think that, really we borrow heavily from the agile mindset of software development. I think that's where we've learned the most. We started from a perspective of being in, construction and development, and being, digital transformation took us heavily towards, solutions and tools and things in that tech space and software space. And the impact it had on us as a team and as we grew through that was, not only did we see the benefit of those tools and keep pace with what's happening in the change, we really did understand this, this agile, the benefit of being sort of designed by discovery. And so now I think, core to any kind of engagement is really early challenging of the assumptions, really questioning whether there is, even when we're getting briefed, as you say, by that client requirements, is like we first make sure that we take a chance to go and validate those requirements, and like, is that really the driver, or is it, or is that opinion or an assumption coming from somewhere else and historic or whatever. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing that we bring right now, is this really sort of chunk it down, understand, we don't know what we don't know yet, and just really drive into that, that kind of practice. And that's pretty fresh, I would say. It's not unique, but it's fresh in a land development cycle as it relates to physical goods and built space.
Oh, I think I think what you guys are doing is so off the charts. I don't see a lot of firms coming in with this type of approach. I don't actually see a lot of them having these conversations, and that's what I think is so unique. I love that you are able to integrate what they're requiring, look at those assumptions, prove those assumptions, and then also opening the conversation to, what about this? What about having this opportunity? What is the real objective? What are we really trying to do here? I feel like you guys do that at such a different level. I haven't seen, that's what was so unique about meeting you, Graham, a week ago when, I was talking with one of my colleagues, because this approach isn't a standard approach, and we certainly need it. I feel like we spend a tremendous amount of money and time and energy on these large projects, on these large developments, and utilizing the resources of what your team has created helps those efficiencies. And I believe, if we can start gathering this data and information at the forefront of these design processes, and utilizing the resources that you have with supply chain and these other suppliers really allows us to create more efficiencies in the process of building and building a better product.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
there anything that you'd like to add to that?
No, I mean, appreciate that. I think really when I look to the comparables in other sectors and other industries, it doesn't matter whether we take retail or hospitality or any B2C stuff, there's always been a very well defined customer success connectivity. Right? There is order, it's transactional, order placed, order fulfilled, outcome, success, and that continuity and the opportunity to optimize and create improvement in that chain is usually there. It was or it's been put together. So again, if we want to talk about CRMs or anything, the point is there's a cause and there is an effect, and it's the relationship between the two things is well understood, and so you can improve. Where I think construction and the built space really suffers is there isn't an obvious and accountable path between those two things. There's a design intention, at several levels. There's a project intention that comes from the from the developer or the owner. There's obviously a series of intentions from a design team, and then there's usually some decoupling through the construction process to a bunch of outcomes. And yes, the outcomes are measured, either on a community level or a municipal level or on a homeowner level. Like we can see whether they're happy or not. But it's incredibly opaque to understand how to what was put in generated what came out. And so I think again, these techniques and having this idea about again an outcome oriented design process and a very granular frameworks that gives some sort of traceability. Hey, we intended this, therefore we created this product which we put into this project with these known objectives. If you can just pull that data through the process to the point where you can make it connect with the outcomes, then again, even on a distributed basis, we can all kind of start to figure out what went wrong. But I do think, legacy structures like general contracting and lump sum agreements and other things, obviously, by definition, are kind of barriers to that. And working out how to have that chain of custody, but in a horizontal, dispersed supply chain versus just vertically, trying to do it all under one roof, is definitely an ongoing challenge. But I think there's something in that from my perspective that we really need to address. Again, obviously speaks to collaboration, obviously speaks to being data driven. But I think we do need to pay more attention to, logic, that went into the project and measuring those outcomes in the same way as any software product would do.
I think just actually the end of that, just measuring the outcomes, because I think that's the thing that we keep missing, right? If we don't have that outcome and understanding where we were starting and where are we finishing, those are the things that are the missing tools. And I love that your company, it's not about the project, it's about the product. I think that's a really unique way of looking at things. So in your opinion, where do you see Kitspace in the next 5 years?
I think we'll continue to follow the ball in terms of evolving us offering the services as the industry changes. I think what we'd like to see is, again, obviously more adoption of assembled buildings, more of this productization, and an opportunity to work on more different offerings in that space. I think that, again, for where we're at as an industry and what we're transitioning into, by necessity, lots of things need to be created and lots of things need to be, discounted and failed and kind of put to one side. And so, I think in terms of where I think we'll be is I think we'll continue to be on the edge as a kind of early adopter and operating innovation company in that space, but trying to continue to test out these theories and not get too hung up on, again, remain objective, remain neutral, see what we can create as the market, and help everyone grow. I mean, again, aware of your audience and this community around offsite construction and all forms of industrialization. I think we've got to do a better job at really growing the market collaboratively, and that includes engaging with activities and projects that aren't necessarily a core fit for that offering that the people are trying to kind of put into market. Not sure how that happens, but again, it certainly needs to, we need to sort of aggregate more demand and share out more opportunity, I think, as an ecosystem.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that innovation, conversation, outcomes, changing mindset, looking at interior design, looking at manufacturing, all these pieces to be able to fully resource them and build these teams and understand all these solutions we're at the tip of the iceberg, right? We're just starting to have these conversations and we're starting to implement things of what you're doing at your company. Well, I'm certainly honored to have you here. I feel like you are in this innovation track that needs to be more explored and having these conversations because it only improves the way that we build more sustainably. And I think that you're definitely onto something, Graham. It's so exciting to have you here. Thank you so much for being here on Offsite Dirt.
No, thank you so much. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what happens next.
We will for sure. So, as we are looking through the process, our build systems, our innovation, our organizations, and really changing the mindset, I think Kitspace really does evolve us through that next generation of building. I'm Audree Grubesic. Thank you for being here on Offsite Dirt, and we can't wait to see you on our next show. Have a great day.